For USCFootball.com, I'm Nicole Shearin here with Ryan Abraham after just witnessing USC football's first spring practice of the season with new head coach Lincoln Riley. So Ryan, what were your initial thoughts after being on that field for that first practice?
Yeah, it's weird. We're back here now. It's been a little while since we saw, and that obviously not having, Dante Williams was the head coach, the interim head coach back then. Now you got Lincoln Riley, and we got to see the first 20 minutes or so, but maybe a little more than we thought. We got to see the quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, and Miller Moss, the only two scholarship quarterbacks, throwing the football around, all the new wide receivers, going through some of the different drills. So you don't get a great feel for exactly, what the whole practice is going to be. We go back in the media room, so we're not really hearing what's going on, but the energy, I thought, was really good from what we saw. And, we'll talk about the players and coaches we talked to afterwards, but it seemed like everyone was just sort of like it's a whole new beginning. And even if you were a four-year veteran on the team, or you're brand new, you just got here like a month ago, you're sort of in the same boat, right? You're on the same page. And so I like the energy, and it's going to be different. Not seeing the whole thing is a little bit weird, but, for what we got to see, I like the energy a lot.
Like you said, we didn't get to see the entire practice, but what did you notice about the team camaraderie, if anything? I know it's early, but what did you notice right away?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like they were on the same page. I think a lot of that came from the winter workouts where they did get to work together. And Lincoln Riley talked about there hasn't been a first practice. He hasn't seen the first practice himself, but they have done a lot of these workouts where they do the players got to run among, plays among themselves, and they would go through conditioning drills and stuff with the coaches out there. I feel like through the meetings and what they were doing in the offseason, they got a better feel for what was expected from a Lincoln Riley practice. It was going to be different. I think Dante Williams had never been head coach. A lot of what carried over from Clay Helton, he brought to his practices. This was going to be a whole new thing, and just not being able to watch him, it's a little bit different. But you feel like they seemed like from the very beginning they got through the drills pretty quickly because they knew what to expect from these last couple of months of the off-season workouts.
One thing I immediately noticed after practice was the amount of energy that each of these players had talking to us in the press conferences. What does that have to say about this team and this squad in general? I
mean, it's funny. I've covered this team for a long time. I've been here that long. I've been here a long time. They always seem to address the media really well, and it's hard when you watch other programs, like if you're at a different major school and they don't let the players talk all that much. It seems that like when you let them talk and they're able to grow and become different, better people. And especially in this era of NIL, you want these players to be able to express themselves, not just on social media, but when they get interviewed by us and in the media. And yeah, just everyone we talked to today, just the energy was really high. It could have been a new person. It could have been someone that's been around for a while, like a Brett Nealon. Everyone just seemed to bring, this positive energy. Like they were just excited. Lincoln Riley talked about this was like sort of like a presidential thing, like his first 100 days, the first 100 days in the office, you make an assessment. He really just wanted to be out here and be on the practice field, and it seemed like the players and coaches felt the same way.
Okay, so let's talk quarterbacks to start off. Caleb Williams, Miller Moss, those are the two quarterbacks that we have right now. What did you notice from these guys today? But specifically, let's talk about Caleb first.
Yeah, there's only two scholarship quarterbacks, which I asked Caleb Williams about that. He's like, his shoulder might get hurt. It would just be a little sore. But I think they both talked about competition. Chris Trevino talked to Miller Moss. I got to talk to Caleb Williams. But they've known each other for a while. They were in the Elite 11 together. They're on like a group text thread for all the elite quarterbacks that were in that group. So they're familiar with each other, and I think there's going to be some camaraderie there. They're going to work together and try to help each other out because there are only two scholarship quarterbacks right now. You got to see them. They were right next to each other doing the quarterback drills in the beginning, taking turns throwing to different receiver lines. You had two other like walk-on quarterbacks doing stuff there. And I like just watching both of them. I like the way each of them were throwing the football. The deep balls looked like they had good touch on it and had tight spirals. And I love the ball just kind of pops off Caleb Williams' hands really well. I like that too. Just seeing what they're doing. They're about the same size. Miller Moss, I think, is like maybe chest-wise, like his upper body might be a little thicker than what Caleb Williams is. But I think his lower body, and he can run. His legs, I think, his thighs, especially, maybe a little thicker. But it's great that they're going to have this kind of competition. Lincoln Riley did tell Miller Moss that as soon as they were going to bring in Caleb Williams, he went to him right away, told him about it. He feels really comfortable doing that, and he said, competition is going to bring out the best in everybody. So it's great to hear from them. Caleb Williams was, he's holding court. Like when he was there, just like Lincoln Riley, pretty much everyone was watching when Caleb Williams was talking, and the smile on his face, thinking about his answers and coming up with, it's like, oh, that's a good question or whatever it was. He seemed like a Southern California guy, and I think he's going to fit in really well with what's going on here. But, first day, we're not going to know too much about the competition. But he's acting like QB1. He's trying to be a leader like he should be, and that's what you expect.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, what kind of leader do you see Caleb being for this team? Obviously, he has a relationship with Lincoln Riley, and how do you see that leadership carrying over this season?
Yeah, I think you need a leader, especially when he talked about the culture, like you're coming from a good culture, and they didn't really have a good culture here. They're 4-8 last season. But I think the leadership skills he brought, he talked about not even being the starter when he was at Oklahoma, but still wanted to try, Spencer Rattler's a starter. He's still trying to show a lot of those leadership skills, and he's bringing that here, even though he's not really familiar with everybody. There's a couple guys like Mario Williams and some of the coaches they brought over, but he's learning people's names. He's figuring out it. I think his personality, I think, is a big part of it, because if you can be a great football player, we've seen great quarterbacks, we've seen great people, players before that aren't maybe a little prickly. They're just not someone that you want to follow. Like, hey, he's great, he's on my team, I want him to throw me the football. But he's not like someone I'm going to follow. Caleb Williams seems like a guy you're going to follow into the trench. Like, you're going to follow him into battle. And I think you make that a priority when you get into the locker room. Everyone that comes in contact with him is going to be like, I like him, he likes me, this is a good thing. And I think that really helps kind of establish a baseline for leadership. Then your play on the field is going to take it from there. But everything we've seen from him so far just screams like he's a leader.
Now, this wide receiver room this season is big for this Trojan team. We have returners from last season, and we have new guys from the portal. So how do you see this competition shaking down? Yeah,
so Lincoln Riley said that they were going to play at least 8 guys at a time. But we'd heard that before when Graham Harrell came in. We heard that they were going to have 10, 11 receivers. It wasn't that way. They were playing pretty much 4 guys, maybe 5 guys. I believe Lincoln Riley is where he's going to play a lot of guys. There's not a lot of guys out there. I talked to Dennis Simmons, the outside wide receivers coach, about the transfer portal. He's like, yeah, we don't have enough guys. Usually you recruit multiple high school players to come in at that wide receiver spot. They've only brought in one, C.J. Williams, and he said he really liked what C.J. Williams brought today. But you bring in a guy like Terrell Bynum from Washington, a Brendan Rice, from Colorado, and you got guys on the roster, former 5-star Kyle Ford. So I like some of the options there. Obviously, you lose a bunch of guys from last year. I mean, losing a Drake London is a big deal. So I think they have to kind of figure that out. It's wide open right now as far as the competition goes. A guy like Mario Williams has an advantage just because he's been in the system before. He's very familiar with Caleb Williams, and I think that helps a lot. But it's a room that I think is talented. There's some guys that are unproven. There, guys like Taj Washington, all those guys from last year. Gary Bryant talked today. I think there's going to be some great options for them, and they're going to have to watch all these practices and kind of see what comes of it. But you're probably going to see some more guys added to this room too. It seems like every place that's something they're going to do. But it's definitely one of those groups you want to watch, this wide receiver group, because there's just talent and just different. The mix of guys is really unique from what they're bringing in.
Because Mario Williams and Caleb Williams did have that relationship from Oklahoma, do you see Mario Williams being the type of player who teaches the other receivers the schemes and different things like that? Or do you see him keeping it more to himself with his own relationship with Caleb?
No, I think that's something he wants to share. I didn't get to talk to him today, but I talked, from what I heard, it seemed like he was someone that was just, had great personality as well, and is going to try to be, a team player in that room. And they know, you can't just be the one guy. We saw that with Drake London last year. It was pretty much him, right, for a long time. When he goes down the receiver room, it just wasn't the same. And this is going to be, the ball's going to be shared. It's not going to be one guy's catching every single ball just because they went to college together before and played a year at Oklahoma. So I feel like it's one of those things where if I make this player better, he can make me better too. And I feel like that's where it's going to be like.
So with running backs, you have Travis Dye from Oregon, but you also have Gary Bryant Jr. from last season. How do you see that room shaking down this season?
Yeah, so Gary Bryant, the wide receiver, but you have Darwin Barlow.
Sorry, my bad.
That's okay. Yeah, Darwin Barlow. And also, so there's only 3 scholarship running backs. So you only have 2 quarterbacks. There's only 3 scholarship running backs. Brandon Campbell ended up going to the transfer portal. So that's the one USC guy, the one high school player that they brought in last year. He's no longer there. So, Austin Jones, you got him from Stanford. He was a starter. You have Travis Dye, like you mentioned, and Darwin Barlow, who was also a transfer. And I talked to Kyle McDonald, the new running back coach that come over from from Utah. A lot of people from Oklahoma. He comes over from Utah. He's very familiar with both of those guys, right? So he's familiar with Barlow because USC and Utah played. He's also familiar with with Jones and Dye because they played them. Stanford played those teams. So Utah played those teams. So it's a different kind of room. he was really excited about what they bring to the table, the kind of, those are guys that know how to win, and he's really excited for that. Now, he knows they're going to add some guys, right? There's just portal. I mean, you're going to go to the portal again. And the way Lincoln Riley was talking about it, even yesterday on Trojans Live, it's just like, we're going to hammer the portal. I think he might have mentioned it was double digits today, more guys you're bringing in, which seems like a whole lot, but they need to. He said it's a very unique roster, and I think the running back room, it shows how unique it can be, because you have a guy that was at Oregon last year, Stanford, and TCU the year before. That's your whole running back group right now. It's very different, but talented dudes. I talked to McDonald about what he wants to see. It's not just running the football. He's a big proponent of blocking, pass protection, things like that. If you don't block, you're not going to be on the field. So he's a coach with some great energy, just like some of the players. You talk to him, and you kind of get excited about things. So yeah, it's only 3 of them right now, but we'll see what they add after spring.
Yes, Lincoln definitely said that he's expecting to add double digits to this team when it comes to the portal and recruits and everything like that. But final thoughts, Ryan. This is obviously the first spring practice in the books. Exciting stuff. What are your final thoughts after that? I feel pumped.
Yeah, just to be out here again is nice. And and us in the media, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to watch this stuff at all. So we got to watch some, and it was cool to just take a few pictures of Caleb. Hey, here's Caleb Williams. We've talked about him for months, it seems like. As soon as you heard about Lincoln Riley, the next thing is like Caleb Williams is going to come with him. To get a picture of him in a Trojan uniform out here throwing a football around to wide receivers that you're familiar with and new ones, it's just kind of cool to see that again, and to be able to talk to players and see their energy, how positive it was. I know people have tried, last year and years before, there was sort of like this dark cloud over the program, just years and years of it didn't have that winning culture, and the feeling you get is they have it now. And it's like the look on their faces, like kids at Christmas are like, hey, we get to practice again. We get to be out here on the football field again. No pads yet, but it's something. So, I think, USC fans are probably going to be pumped to see, what's happening at the first practice. We're pumped to just be out there. And, it's exciting to get, to be able to talk about football again and see it on the field. Not just in theory, we're like, hey, this guy's going to come or whatever. We get to see him out there doing stuff.
And the spring game is April 23rd, so that's super exciting for USC fans and the players themselves. But that's going to do it from the first spring practice for the USC Trojans. For Ryan Abraham, I'm Nicole Shearin. Check out uscfootball.com for more.